At minus 40 degrees, steel behaves like glass. It becomes brittle. Structures that were engineered to flex under stress suddenly crack under load. Train rails snap. Construction equipment shatters. Metal tools fracture in your hands. Your breath doesn't just fog. It crystallizes midair and falls as ice particles. Locals call it diamond dust. Exposed skin freezes in under 60 seconds. Your eyelashes stick together when you blink. Moisture in your nostrils freezes solid with each inhale. This is not survivable by instinct. And yet, hundreds of thousands of people live in places where minus 40 is not an anomaly. It's winter. Towns like Yellowknife in Canada's Northwest Territories, Fairbanks, Alaska, Yakutsk in Siberia, a city of nearly 300,000 people built on permafrost, where the average January temperature sits at minus 38 degrees Celsius. Life at this temperature isn't survival by adaptation. It's survival by engineering. And the systems required to make it work are far stranger and far more fragile than most people realize. Before we talk about how people survive at minus 40, we need to understand what minus 40 actually does. Because cold at this extreme isn't just uncomfortable. It fundamentally alters the behavior of materials, biology, and basic infrastructure in ways that make normal life impossible without intervention. Let's begin with human physiology. Your body maintains an internal temperature of roughly 37 degrees Celsius. At minus 40, a gradient of 77 degrees, heat loss is catastrophic. Exposed skin begins to freeze within 30 to 60 seconds. This is frostbite, actual ice crystal formation in your tissue. First, the extremities, fingers, toes, ears, nose. Then, deeper structures. But frostbite is almost secondary to the real danger, which is hypothermia. Your body loses heat through radiation, conduction, convection, and respiration. At minus 40, all four pathways are maxed out. Your core temperature begins dropping even if you're dressed warmly, because every breath you take is pulling superheated, humidified air out of your lungs and replacing it with air cold enough to crystallize moisture on contact. If your core temperature drops below 35 degrees, you enter mild hypothermia. You start shivering violently. Your judgment deteriorates. Below 32 degrees, you stop shivering. That's not a good sign. It means your body is shutting down peripheral systems to preserve the core. Below 28 degrees, your heart rhythm destabilizes. Cardiac arrest becomes likely. Now, let's talk about what happens to everything else. Metals contract as they cool. At minus 40, this contraction is severe enough that joints fail, welds crack, and structural tolerances that worked fine at 0 degrees suddenly don't. Steel becomes brittle. It loses ductility, the ability to deform under stress without breaking. A steel beam that would bend slightly under load at room temperature will snap cleanly at minus 40. This is why the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, which carries hot oil across nearly 1,300 kilometers of permafrost, is built on supports that allow it to move. The pipeline expands and contracts with temperature swings of over 70 degrees. If it were rigidly anchored, it would tear itself apart. Rubber hardens. Tires lose elasticity and become prone to cracking. Gaskets and seals fail. Anything flexible becomes rigid. Plastics shatter. Battery chemistry slows to the point that a fully charged car battery can lose 60% of its cranking power. Liquids freeze, not just water, but diesel fuel, hydraulic fluid, even some motor oils if they're not specially formulated. What this means is that the basic infrastructure of modern life, roads, vehicles, buildings, power grids, water systems, cannot function at minus 40 without fundamental redesign. You can't just build a city and turn up the heat. You have to engineer every single system to operate in conditions that are actively hostile to their function. Let's start with the most basic question. How do you build a structure that doesn't destroy itself in these conditions? In most of the world, you dig a foundation into the ground. You build upward. In permafrost regions, that doesn't work. Permafrost is ground that remains frozen year-round, sometimes hundreds of meters deep. It's stable as long as it stays frozen. But if you build a heated structure directly on top of it, the heat radiates downward. The permafrost thaws. The ground becomes unstable. Your building sinks, tilts, or collapses. So instead, buildings are elevated on stilts, steel or concrete pilings driven deep into the permafrost, designed to keep the heated structure separated from the ground by an air gap. This allows cold air to circulate underneath, preventing heat transfer. In Yakutsk, entire apartment blocks sit on these pilings, sometimes 3 or 4 meters off the ground. But even the pilings are a problem. If they're driven too deep and conduct heat downward, they can destabilize the permafrost around them. So they're often fitted with thermosiphons, passive heat exchangers that wick heat away from the ground during winter and keep the permafrost frozen. Then there's the thermal envelope. At -40, the temperature differential between inside and outside can exceed 60 degrees. That creates massive heat loss through walls, windows, and roofs. Buildings in these climates use insulation thicknesses that would be considered extreme anywhere else. Walls might be 30 to 40 centimeters thick, packed with multiple layers of insulation and vapor barriers to prevent moisture from condensing and freezing inside the wall cavity. Windows are triple paned at minimum, in some cases quadruple paned. And even then, ice buildup on the inside of windows is common if indoor humidity isn't carefully controlled. Heating systems run constantly. Furnaces are oversized. Backup systems are mandatory because if your heat fails at -40, you have hours at most before the interior temperature drops to lethal levels. Many homes have secondary wood stoves or diesel heaters as fail-safes. Water and sewage are even more complicated. You can't bury pipes below the frost line like you would in temperate climates, because in permafrost regions, the frost line is the entire ground. Instead, water and sewer lines are run above ground and heated, insulated conduits called Utilidors. These are essentially tunnels that carry pipes, sometimes large enough to walk through, maintained at above freezing temperatures. In places where Utilidors aren't feasible, water is delivered by truck, and sewage is collected in holding tanks and pumped out manually. Roads are another problem. Asphalt becomes brittle and cracks. Freeze-thaw cycles, when temperatures fluctuate above and below freezing, create potholes and heaving. In the coldest regions, some roads are simply compacted ice and gravel, maintained throughout the winter and rebuilt each spring. Now, let's talk about vehicles, because this is where the physics becomes a daily, visible fight. At -40, a car will not start without intervention. The battery loses capacity. The engine oil thickens to the consistency of molasses, making the engine nearly impossible to turn over. Diesel fuel gels into a waxy sludge. Gasoline loses volatility, making combustion difficult. So what people do is this: block heaters. These are electric heating elements installed in the engine block, plugged into an external power source to keep the engine warm when the vehicle is parked. In places like Yellowknife or Fairbanks, parking lots are equipped with electrical outlets at every spot. It's not optional. If your car sits unplugged overnight at -40, you're not driving it the next morning without external intervention. Battery blankets, insulated wraps with built-in heating elements to keep the battery at operational temperature. Synthetic oils formulated to remain fluid at extreme low temperatures. Standard motor oil would be too viscous to circulate. Fuel additives to prevent diesel from gelling. Remote starters, so you can warm the vehicle for 20 to 30 minutes before you actually get in it. But even with all of that, getting into a car at -40 is a specific kind of ordeal. The steering wheel is so cold it hurts to touch, even through gloves. The seats are rigid. Seatbelts are stiff. Plastic components crack if handled roughly. And if something goes wrong, if the car breaks down on a remote road in the middle of winter, you have minutes, not hours, before the situation becomes life-threatening. This is why people in these regions carry survival kits in their vehicles. Not as a precaution, as standard practice. Sleeping bags rated to extreme cold. Fire starting equipment. Emergency food. Spare fuel. Flares. A candle, because a single candle burning inside a car can raise the interior temperature by several degrees, enough to prevent lethal cold while you wait for help. Living at -40 isn't just about engineering infrastructure. It's about internalizing a set of behavioral protocols so deeply that they become automatic. Layering is non-negotiable, but it's not random layering. It's systematic. Base layer, synthetic or merino wool, designed to wick moisture away from the skin. Cotton is lethal in these conditions because it retains moisture, which then freezes. Insulation layer, down or synthetic fill, designed to trap air and create a thermal barrier. Outer layer, windproof and water-resistant shell, because wind chill at -40 can push the effective temperature down to -50 or 60. Extremities are the priority. Insulated boots rated to at least -40. Mitts, not gloves. Mitts keep fingers together, preserving warmth. A face mask or balaclava to protect exposed skin. Goggles if you're going to be outside for extended periods, because your eyes will water and the tears will freeze. You develop an awareness of your body that most people in temperate climates never need. You monitor your fingers and toes constantly. The first sign of frostbite is numbness. If you stop feeling something, you have a very narrow window to warm it before tissue damage becomes permanent. You don't touch metal with bare skin. Ever. Metal at -40 will freeze bond to your skin on contact. People have lost patches of skin from their hands by grabbing a car door handle or a railing without gloves. You don't breathe through your mouth when you're outside. Inhaling that much cold air directly can damage your lungs. You breathe through your nose or through a scarf to pre-warm the air. You don't stay outside longer than necessary. Errands are planned. Trips are minimized. If you're going to be outside for more than a few minutes, you tell someone where you're going. And then there's the psychological weight of it, the isolation, the darkness, because at these latitudes, winter means weeks of minimal daylight, sometimes none at all. The constant awareness that the environment outside your door is lethal. Seasonal affective disorder is common. So is cabin fever. Communities in these regions develop strong social structures, communal gatherings, festivals, deliberate efforts to maintain connection, because isolation in these conditions can be as dangerous as the cold itself. So, here's the obvious question. Why do people live in places where survival requires this much effort? For many, the answer is economic. These regions are rich in natural resources: oil, natural gas, diamonds, minerals. The jobs pay well. The cost of living is high, but so are wages. Some people come for a few years, make money and leave. Others stay because the communities are tight-knit, because the landscapes are extraordinary, because the challenges create a particular kind of resilience. But there's also something else. People who live in extreme environments often describe a clarity that comes from the stakes being real. There's no room for complacency. The cold is unforgiving. But that unforgiving quality forces a level of attention, preparation, and competence that becomes deeply ingrained. You learn to respect the environment in a way that's difficult to explain to people who've never experienced it. Not fear, exactly. Respect. But here's what makes all of this precarious. Every single system we've talked about, the buildings, the utilities, the vehicles, the supply chains, depends on continuous energy input. If the power goes out in a temperate climate, it's inconvenient. If the power goes out at -40, it's a crisis. Buildings lose heat within hours. Water lines freeze. Vehicles won't start. Communication systems fail. And in the most remote communities, help can be days away. Climate change is making these systems even more fragile. Permafrost is thawing earlier and deeper each year. Infrastructure built on the assumption of stable permafrost is beginning to fail. Roads are buckling. Buildings are sinking. The very ground these communities are built on is becoming unstable. Life at -40 is not natural. Humans did not evolve for this. Our biology is optimized for tropical and temperate climates. What makes survival possible is engineering. Relentless, continuous, expensive engineering. And the thing that's easy to forget, especially if you live somewhere temperate, is how thin that margin actually is. The difference between life and death at -40 is measured in layers of insulation, backup heating systems, and whether your car was plugged in overnight. It's a high-stakes battle against atmospheric physics, waged daily by people who've learned to take nothing for granted. Because at -40, the cold doesn't negotiate.